Hello, welcome to my channel. My channel is called Serenity and Strength, and it covers my journey of widowhood and along with also my wellness journey, which was part of my widowhood journey. Um, my name is Joyce Onyango. In the last recording, I covered something to do with wellness, which was to do with porridge, and I had a lot of positive feedback from that. And going forward, once in a while in some of the recordings, I'll just be covering some of the wellness issues or tips, which I think would be a good opportunity for people to actually improve their well-being. I would request that you like, share, and subscribe. And in subscribing, I would just like to say that it doesn't cost you anything, and that is for the benefit of the older generation, baby boomers like me. I've had quite a number of inquiries about that because I think we come from that generation whereby we were subscribing to newspapers and to magazines, and you'd always pay when you subscribe. So it doesn't cost you anything, just that when you do subscribe, you'll be able to get updates whenever there is a new posting that is done. Um, I hope that those tidbits on your small changes that you can make in your lifestyle will be beneficial to all, and that we're able to build good habits out of it. Um, I said my name is Joyce Onyango, and actually I am giving my experiences from the perspective of Kenya, because that is where my husband was from. In this particular episode, I'm just going to cover two issues or two aspects where decisions have got to be made and what took place in my particular case. Now, before I do that, I would just like to give a shout out and a big thank you to a friend and a former colleague called Joy, who, as God would have it at that point in time, because she was also living in Botswana, she had taken her leave and had taken her leave to do certain things. But when she got to know about the passing on of my husband, she just dropped everything and came and was with me throughout the period, right up to the time when she took us to the airport with the others. And she was there every single morning. She would be there to make sure we have breakfast, make sure we eat, make sure that any place I needed to go, she would be there with me. If I didn't need to go anywhere, she would sit with me in the house, pray with me, and just be there. And she was really a blessing to me. So, Joy, God bless you and take your flowers. And anybody else, if you have that opportunity of standing in the gap for somebody, please do it. It makes such a lot of difference. Of course, there were many others also who were there, and I may mention them as we go on, and I'd really like to appreciate all of them. So we actually went together with Joy to the office. I needed to go and fill in leave forms because I was going to be away. So when I went to fill in the leave forms, I was also given a salary advance forms because I asked that I needed to have a salary advance because finances are so important during such a time. And it makes a lot of difference to have also your own finances, which you can use to do whatever you need to without having to depend necessarily on other people. Then I was also advised to fill in a house request form, which I did. I hadn't realized that I needed to do that. But when such things take place, there are things which come into motion because we're living in a house which was allocated to my husband and it would no longer be available to us after a time period. So it's good to be able to set in motion such things early enough in the process so that when changes do occur, you are ready for them because there are always timelines to such things. Then one of the things which I remembered while we were in the office was I went to the bathroom and I remember that there was a window that was open and, the birds were just singing. The birds were singing, and I'm thinking, how can the birds be singing? My world has come to a standstill, and it looks like the world is still going on. So you find that you are in your own bubble that you need to navigate. But what I can always say is that whenever you have those such moments, you need to call on God constantly so that He's able to help you to navigate and to help you to move on. Because that was what I kept on doing whenever I had those kind of moments. And they would come from time to time, very unexpectedly. Something happens, and then you realize, this is where I am. But then you say, God, help me. Yes, this is where I am. This is where you brought me. Please take me on and let things go on well for me and the children. Now, that same day, the university people came. They had sent a message that they'd be coming. And when they came, one of the things they did was that they were inquiring from me about the burial date. Because they said they had been told that the burial was going to be in about a month's time, and that would be leaving Botswana in about 3 weeks' time. I was actually quite aghast when I heard that, but I had to, not make myself look like I was so shocked because I think what we had agreed on and discussed was something quite different, and I had not been consulted on this. So I quickly thought, and I just told them, no, I don't think it can be like that. I knew that there was a public holiday that was coming the following week, and I think we'd agreed earlier on that we needed to leave after that on the Wednesday. So that's what I told them. I told them that we needed to do everything that needs to be done before that public holiday, so that on the Wednesday we'd be able to leave for Kenya. Then they also had what do you call it? They had a last expense package whereby they also pay for the coffin. Then they also so they told me that they had received the invoice for the coffin, and I didn't want to, create any more embarrassment. So I just told them it was okay. But in my mind, I was thinking, I wonder which coffin that is because I hadn't actually gone and chosen a coffin. So after they left, it's the next day that we went and saw the coffin, and it really wasn't to my liking. It was the kind of thing I didn't think my husband really liked because I knew the kind of things that he liked. So I ended up choosing another one, but it was much more expensive than the one that had the invoice. The invoice had gone to the university. So when we talked to the person in the funeral home, I told him that I would meet the difference, but he told me no. He said, no, I can't let you do that. I'm going to give it to you at the same price as the invoice which I sent to the university, even if it is that it's going to be like I've made a slight loss on it. So I really felt so blessed by that because God let him have that change, or at least have that heart that he could allow that to happen. You know. So just thinking about it, because to me, the burial date should be something which you know the widow is also involved in. And in our case, I had thought it through when I had made my suggestions because of first of all practicality. The school holidays were just beginning. My children had already missed the last exam and they'd missed the last days of school. So we needed to have the funeral done as soon as possible so they could come back and get ready for when schools were going to start. Because as it is, the date that was being suggested, it meant that they were going to come back when schools had already started. Then also I considered my own compassionate leave. Our compassionate leave, as most, I think they're fairly short. So it would mean that if we're going to stay on longer, then I was going to have to take extra leave days. And actually, most of my leave days for the year would be gone just because of that. And I would wonder that what would I be doing staying there on leave and just waiting to travel to Kenya? Didn't make sense to me. And then also the other consideration to me was the long wait period. It's so emotionally draining that you're just there waiting, especially for me and the children are just there waiting to travel and we're not really doing much. What was the essence of that? Then lastly to me also, the aspect of expense. Because normally what happens is that once a death had been announced like that, you'd find that at home in the village, people just congregate. And they'll congregate and wait there until the funeral actually takes place, which meant that the longer we take, the more expensive it is, because so long as they're there, you're the one who actually ends up having to meet the cost of feeding them. So really, it didn't make sense to me. The goodness was that the university people agreed with me, and actually I saw a lot of relief on their faces after I told them that the date was not going to be whatever they'd been told, and we changed the date. So we worked towards that. So it's good to always have, consultation during that kind of a thing. Of course, that consultation is between the nucleus family and normally the widow and the extended family. And the consideration mainly would be, is the nucleus family going to be available, and also the parents and the siblings. And a lot of times you find the delays are normally because of children being out of the country. But if they're not, then it's really not necessary. Another thing also that comes in is if there's fundraising that needs to be done, and fundraising is normally for things like the maybe a hospital fee and that kind of thing, the coffin, and yet in our case those things were being taken care of. And another thing with us, at least the goodness was that it was our friends who were fundraising, and also a very big thank you to them because they made so many things possible. And I think that is one thing which also we'll discuss in another episode, because when you're staying out there, it's not very easy when such things actually happen financially, because it is very, very expensive. There are very many different traditions that are out there. Customs are different, cultures. Some have very elaborate ceremonies after keeping the body for months. Others, within a 1 day or so, they bury. Others, at least by the end of the week, they're buried. In the old days, we know there were no mortuaries, so people buried fairly fast. And what we can say from that is that things changed from no mortuaries to mortuaries. And now, when mortuaries came in, you find people keeping bodies sometimes for long, especially certain um, tribes. And they even have this belief that the longer the person is kept, let's say a week or two, and in fact, not even a week, for them it's normally 2 weeks or three, then they're actually honoring the person as it is. But I think you have to look at all kinds of things and try to balance accordingly, because sometimes it becomes just too heavy emotionally and even financially, but particularly emotionally. So I think, yes, have discussions, balance it out with the extended family, but basically do what works for you and the children to be able to move on. That is what is so important, because you know something, you have lived closest to that person, you have built your own family culture, you know your preferences, you know the kind of things the person would want, and also you want to be able to honor him, because the person has gone, you are the ones who have been living with that person. And in fact, when you go back, you find you're going to have in your house one less voice. The chair of that person will be empty. You always have constant reminders that the person is gone. And it's always very uplifting for you to know that you have buried them in the way that honors them and which they would have liked. And that includes such choices of the kind of coffee you bury them in. And of course, make sure that you're able to move on, and move on with a lot of positivity, that you've honored the person properly and you've done what you know is best. So, really, I would say don't allow yourselves to be sidelined and not be part of those decisions. Sometimes it may mean that you may have to push or bulldoze a bit, but in the long run, I think it is best. I'd like to hear comments on that, because there's so many different customs out there. Thank you very much. I think I'll stop there. I'd ask you again, kindly like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye, and God bless.